Hey, look at mi gente. Welcome to my universe. Welcome back to my universe. This is Starlini speaking, and I am back with another podcast or a podcast style video this time around. So, what that means essentially is that you do not have to look at the screen. I may put some images on the screen just to go with some of the things that I am saying, but for the most part, you don't need to look at the screen if you don't want to. You can just listen to me. But today, I'd like to talk about. Specifically, I guess, why Haitians and Dominicans, as well as some Latinos and Caribbeans in general, struggle with the concept of race or embracing that concept. Now, just a little example to sort of like reel you in, ya tu sabe. The singer, I guess, I don't really know how to refer to her. She's, I guess, a singer. The Danny Lee girl who recently was in the headlines because of her colorist song talking about some yellow bone is what he want. Now I had a lot of thoughts about that, and obviously, like, as a Dominican person, I wanted to say some things and sort of share some insight. I just decided not to share what I had said because I didn't want to contribute to um not the bullying, because I don't think everyone was bullying her, but a lot of people were clowning her, and I just didn't want whatever insight I had to share, whatever perspective I had to share, to be lumped in with all of that. So I just kept it to myself. Like most of my opinions, I just keep them to myself. However, I've had some conversations with people recently about a similar subject, and one of the things that Danny Lee said is that everyone keeps calling me an effing white girl, and I'm not no effing white girl. And she said that in a tweet in response to the backlash she received for making that silly song called Yellow Bone is What She Wants. Now, when Danny is not walking around with that fake tan or whatever that coloring is on her skin, she does look very, very, very fair skinned. That's the case with a lot of, like, non-brown skinned people who want to see themselves as somewhat black or, somewhat a part of the mixed race community leaning on the black side. Like, oftentimes they look a lot more fair skinned when they haven't been in the sun, like an Adrian Bailon, for example. So racially in America, Danny Lee shows up as a white person the same way that I show up as a black person. However, we are both Dominican. And I wanted to just add to some of the comments that she made, especially when she said, I'm not no effing white girl, because I think that when people hear, especially Black American people, when they hear people say things, or when they hear Dominicans in particular say things like, I'm not black or I'm not white, people have a field day with that. I notice that it's okay, or it's kind of popular or common for people to make fun of Dominicans and keep this joke running that Dominicans are delusional and Dominicans don't know about themselves or their own history or their own heritage. I've heard people say things like Dominicans are Black Hispanics and Dominicans are Black people who are confused. And it's usually coming from Black people who are confused themselves about their own identity, so it's quite hilarious, but at the same time, the ignorance gets very exhausting. I want to say that the same reason that Danny Lee says I am not no effing white girl is the same reason that some brown skinned people from the Dominican Republic or in the Dominican Republic say I'm not black. They say these things because American people, for some reason, have an obsession with skin color and an obsession with race. And there is this desire to apply that same perspective or view of societies to the rest of the countries in the Western Hemisphere. Just because Americans need to see everything or every society through the lens of race, it doesn't mean that that's what we all have to do. And that is certainly not how we all see ourselves. Dominicans who are fair skinned or not brown skin at all, the mestizos and the blanquitos and the güeros, those are not white people in the Dominican Republic. Those are white Dominicans. Several of those people, many of those people, have maybe 30% European ancestry, 30% Taino ancestry, maybe 20 something percent African ancestry, and then maybe 15% Middle Eastern ancestry or Asian ancestry or something like that. The island, our island of Hispaniola, has been inhabited by almost every single type of person or type of ethnic group at some point in history. That is why our culture is so diverse, and that is why there is no distinct look for Caribbean people. We do not have a specific look. Like, for example, in America, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but Americans are typically white. And I don't mean literally. I mean, when people say Americans, they're simply talking about white people most of the time. If they are talking about non-white people, they say Black Americans, they say Mexican Americans, they say Asian Americans. And what that perpetuates is this default notion or this default concept that inherently or naturally Americans are white and everyone else is like a subdivision of American people or America's population or a sub-American. You are perpetuating this idea every single time you emphasize everybody else's ethnic background or everybody else's skin color when you're talking about people from the exact same place. White Americans and Black Americans cannot move forward, in my humble opinion and perspective, because they are so stuck on the part of the conversation about people's skin color. And in some ways, I understand that it's because reparations have not been paid, although they are owed. I understand that the society itself and the country itself cannot move forward as long as there are two Americas that people exist in. There is the white America, and then there is the other America, where the Black Americans see themselves, and everyone who's not white enough or Black enough sees themselves as an other. However, this concept is not one that we as Caribbean people subscribe to, at least not that I know of. Honestly, I think one of the reasons our societies were able to prevail, although many of our countries did suffer from the plague of slavery as well, is because when these countries decided to form themselves, the people said, this is our language, this is who we are, and this is who we will be. I know specifically that for the for the Haitian Revolution, after the former slave people revolted and won, after several failed attempts, our people finally won, and the people said, this country, not the island itself, but this country will now be known as the Republic of Haiti. Haiti being a Taino word. Okay, I think I've mentioned that several times because it's important to recognize that that's how strongly, our culture has been influenced by the different types of people that are from the island or inhabited the island. The Taino people were on the island first. So for the people, for the former slaves, I can't stand referring to them as that. But yeah, for the former African people and the Taino people who worked alongside the African people who were forced into labor just like them, and for the remaining European people, they all decided, we're going to name this place after the Taino people, the original people of Hispaniola. And they said, if you don't like it, you can get the F out. They say, you got 24 hours to get up out this joint, and you can go to France, and you can go next door to the República Dominicana, you can go wherever you want. But if you're going to be here, entonces somos Haitians, and somos del Caribe, somos this and this and that. And that is what they said. And that is how the countries established themselves. Now, of course, after everything happened with the French and with the United States infiltrating the countries and stuff, the country was never the same and the island was never the same. However, at one point in time, there was a general understanding and consensus that we are all Haitian. And it didn't matter that there were people who were obviously, mostly of Taino descent because they had not mixed with the other African people or the European people. And same with the other types of ethnic groups. At some point in time, the generations of people and the different ethnic groups became more mixed, and that is why to this day there is no telling what a Haitian person is going to look like. There is no telling what a Dominican person is going to look like. We have so many different types of DNA or ancestry inside of us. And I think that for people to speak so ignorantly and so proudly or unapologetically on countries that they don't even come from, and on the dynamics that they don't even understand, is just silly to me. I had someone, I shared a story not too long ago about specifically this one time I was at a Haitian pride, or not Haitian pride parade, but like a Haitian parade or something like that. And it was like an annual thing that we would go to for Independence Day. And I remember when I was a kid, I saw two, presumably white people passing by. I'll just be frank. And I had never, heard of white people speaking Creole or seen anything like that in real life. I may have seen them like in the movies or something like that, like the movies that were filmed in Haiti and that my parents had and showed us when we were children. But other than that, like, I don't think I had ever seen a white person in this country speaking Creole, especially, so fluently. So it startled me, but I didn't say anything. My younger brother did say something like, "Daddy, why are there white people here?" And I don't know where he got the nerve to ask that kind of question, but my father snapped, and my father said, "Excuse me, those are not white people. Those are Haitian people. They are Haitian just like me. Don't you ever in your life say that." Like, he went off really quickly on us because it was important for him to dispel that myth that Haitians are all simply Africans who are displaced, or black people, or our brothers and sisters over in Haiti. Like, there's this idea that Haitians are like misplaced Africans or displaced Africans or confused Africans, and that they all look exactly one type of way. And I think, him being an immigrant in this country after spending all of his life, like all of his childhood and early adult life in Haiti, it just bothered him, and it made him feel the need to emphasize to us that we are not like American people, in the sense that we need to sit around and emphasize people's skin color just to say something, or just to ask a question, or just to make a point. Like, the way that we speak is not, "Oh, a white lady baked a cake for our party," or "a white lady passed by me and complimented my hair." No, that's not how we speak. If we're talking about somebody who's from the exact same country as us, who was in the same store as us, who's of the same culture as us, then we say una mujer. We say a woman. We do not say a white woman. Why would we emphasize her skin color? Why would we do that? What's the point? Why would we say a white, what does it matter what her skin color looks like? If we're all Haitian, we're all Haitian. And if the person is not Haitian, then they will say a Dominican, they will say a Cuban, they will say a Jamaican, they will say a Belizean. My father and my mother only had Caribbean friends when I lived with them and when I was growing up. So every person that came around for parties or gatherings and what have you, or in the church, all of them, were from different parts of Latin America. And, of course, mostly like Haitian and what have you, like Belizeans, Jamaicans, and people, from those regions, the Caribbean people. And, I never heard my father say like that black Jamaican over there. I never heard my parents say, "Oh, that black Cuban over there." They were just Cuban. They were just Belizean. They were just Jamaican. We just had Belizean neighbors. They weren't black people, or they weren't black Belizeans. The same with my friends at school. If they were, I had Belizean friends who were lighter than me. who probably would be considered or seen as like a mixed race person in the United States. But then if they go over to, where my parents are from, they're just seen as like Latinas. They're just seen as Latino people and what have you, because we recognize ourselves as just being of the same places. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, colorism does persist. And that is, again, just like racism, due to American ideals being pushed all throughout the Western world, as if we all need to subscribe to the same notions. I really do not want us to. As people from the Caribbean, as Latinos, whether you're from French Latin America, which is where Haiti was originally established, it was a French colony. It was not a Spanish colony, it was a French colony, and the region was called French Latin America. That is why Haitian people are Latinos, the same way that Brazilians are Latinos, even though Brazilians speak Portuguese and not Spanish. I don't understand how people like to play stupid and play slow. Like, let's get with it. Keep up, please. Keep moving your freaking feet. The same way that a Brazilian person is a Latino is the same exact way that a Haitian person is a Latino. But due to your racist beliefs, due to your racist, the learned racism and colorism that's perpetuated by American people, you are more likely to see a Brazilian as a Latino before you will ever see a Haitian as a Latino, which says more about you than any of us, because we know who we are. But anywho, just to wrap it up, I shared that story and the person had the nerve to say to me, excuse me, those people were still white. Their nationality, it may be Haitian, but those were still white people. Haiti has white people, and Haiti has blacks, and Haiti has Arabs, and Haiti has Asians. And I'm like, first of all, are you even Haitian, ma'am? Okay, let's put a period and a full stop right here, because I don't really appreciate somebody who's not Caribbean, somebody who's not from the same countries as my parents and the same places as me, telling me about my own people. Like, with all due respect, no thank you. I don't go telling, Caribbean, I mean, not Caribbean, I don't go telling Middle Eastern people the way they see themselves or the way that they should see themselves. I speak on what I have been told by Middle Eastern people or what I've been shown with my very own eyes, and that's it. But yeah, I don't even believe that this white person was from Latin America at all, which is just, all the reason why anybody else would be like, girl, stop talking to me. But I engaged. I said, okay, let's play mental gymnastics real quick, girl. Let me do this for you one time. Let's hit it for the one time. You know what I mean? So I didn't ask her where she was from or nothing like that. I just told her, with all due respect, Haiti does not have white and black people. Haiti has Haitian people. What we're not about to do is force the American racial caste system down the throats of those of us from Latin America, all for the sake of making you feel better, all for the sake of making it easier for you to try to identify us or try to lump us into the categories you are so desperate to see us in as American people. We are the brown skinned people that you see in Haiti and that you see in the Dominican Republic and that you see in Cuba and that you see in Panama and that you see in Colombia and that you see in Trinidad. We are not black people. The reason that we say we're not black, the reason why our parents do not tell us to go around and claim being black, is because black culture, or to be a black American person, is not the same as our culture. We may look the same, but we are not coming from the same place. Isn't that why we don't get reparations? Oh, okay. Isn't that why, even though my parents have been here for 10 plus years, I don't get reparations and they don't get reparations? They've contributed to this society. They've worked, they've paid the taxes and all that kind of stuff, but we won't ever get reparations because we're not descendants of African people who were forced into slavery on this country's soil in particular. That's why people do not see us as the same. Because when you peel back the layers and you start to review people's history and you see, oh, they're not actually coming from the same place as you realize, well, they don't have the same walk as you. As a Caribbean person, whether your skin is fair, or whether your skin is dark, or whether your skin is just on the more brown side, you have the privilege of being able to disassociate yourself with Black and white American issues at times, because oftentimes they're not talking about us. They're not talking about us. They're not talking about our issues. When they're talking about representation, they're not talking about representation of Cuban people. When they say we want to see more Black faces, they specifically are talking about representing the African American people, the Black American people who are descendants of the African people who built this joint. And I'm not mad at Black American people for wanting to see that. But that is also the reason why I know to take a back seat sometimes when conversations about race relations are being had, because oftentimes the conversation is not about people like me. We exist within that nuance of looking like the next Black American person, but not being seen really as coming from the same place, or deserving of the reparations, or deserving of the recognition and the representation, because we are not seen as American enough, or we're not seen as American the same way that Black Americans are. Our heritage and our lineage extends elsewhere. Again, that's not really an issue. I understand it. If you are a Black American person, if you go move over to the Dominican Republic, you're most likely not going to get reparations if the Spanish government were to ever decide to give the people any. And that's why I understand why we won't get any. However, it goes back to my point of recognizing that us Caribbean people, we do have a different walk, and we do appear differently, not in terms of like our physical appearance. I mean, how we see ourselves, and sometimes how we are seen in America is different from Black American people typically. We don't have to, like, I think a Caribbean person isn't always quick to assume it's because I'm Black, it's because I'm brown, it's because I'm white. Like, we don't quickly assume something like that, like an American person who is non-white or white might assume, because we are not conditioned to see ourselves through the lens of our skin color. First and foremost, we see ourselves through our culture and our heritage. I don't want to make this too long, because obviously I can go on and on and on. But yes, I wanted to say something in response to that person, and other ignorant comments that I've seen. I from time to time, I'll see something ignorant, or someone will respond to me with something ignorant, like, you're not Dominican, you're Haitian. You don't try to steal my identity. Like, someone said something silly like that to me, and people came to my defense and was like, actually, there are Black Dominicans, estúpido imbécil. The person was just like, and then another person was like, excuse me, like, there are people of all different skin colors from the Dominican, da da da. And of course, the person was just ignorant as can be. And the person was like, oh, I understand. The person said, there are no white and Black Dominicans, there are just Dominicans, and I'm not letting someone steal my identity. So if there are no white and Black Dominicans, if we're just Dominicans, then why did you just look at me and tell me that I'm not Dominican, and tell me that I'm Haitian? You're literally perpetuating the idea that Rafael Trujillo, presidente pasado, tried to get everybody to really believe about themselves. And obviously his efforts worked to an extent for many white people who are in the Dominican Republic, or many fair-skinned people, I should say, in the Dominican Republic. It was interesting to me. It was like he was perpetuating the same type of rhetoric from El Presidente Pasado, Rafael Trujillo, who really wanted the Dominican people to see themselves as, brown skin only because of the sun, and not due to the Taino or the African ancestry that we have. For this person to say, oh, I don't want you to steal my identity. Why wouldn't you just naturally accept or believe that I'm Dominican? You assume that due to the way that I look and due to my morena skin, I couldn't possibly be Dominican, which is crazy because there are Dominican people who are like 3 times darker than me. There are Dominican people who are, my same exact complexion. And I had to just brush it off because it's that type of ignorance that I think the world is always fighting against. And I think that it's that kind of ignorance that unfortunately comes from a lot of rhetoric perpetuated or initiated by Americans in Los Estados Unidos, again, due to a desperation and a fixation on people's skin colors. So when, just to, bring it full circle, when you hear people who are from the Caribbean or from Latin America or whatever talking about how they're not black, don't take offense. You know what I mean? Like, most of the time, those people have been told that they're not black. Those people have been told that they're not white. We understand racially where we show up, but we don't subscribe to it because we are fortunate enough to be able to just say, I'm Dominican, I'm Haitian, I'm Venezuelan. That's it. I'm Panamanian. And I think rather than be mad that you can't do the same thing and then try to assume that we just hate ourselves or we just don't want to be black and all that goofy shit that people love to say, why don't you just invest time into learning about your own heritage so that you too can one day say, I'm from Kenya, I'm from Zimbabwe, I'm Ghanaian. Why not invest into your own heritage and learning about your own history instead of just being mad at other people and being bothered at other people who choose not to subscribe to their race or who choose not to emphasize their race? Something like your skin color is so easily changeable. You know what I'm saying? Like, we see people or cases of people all the time in Europe changing their skin color, like the white ladies who turn, super, super, super dark due to cosmetic surgeries. And now those white women will be considered black because racially that's how they look due to their skin color. Now, of course, we could look at them and tell something is off. However, in America, those people would just be seen as black due to their skin complexion. Race is so temporary, it seems. Skin color it's not temporary, but it's just so silly to identify with. Of all the things, why identify with your skin color? Of all the things. But I understand that some people, especially Americans, have nothing else to go off of because Americans are so like disconnected from their own roots. I've had white people tell me, oh, you're so lucky that you're Caribbean, you're so lucky that you have dishes or names for the kinds of traditional dishes that you guys eat. You're so lucky that you have a different language. Girl, do you know where you come from? You better go research about Scotland. You better go research about Switzerland. You better go research and figure out if you're related to that damn queen over there. You have specific dishes and languages too. But as an American, whether you're a white or black, you have the privilege of living in this bubble and only having to know English, only having to know a few things about what it means to be American or American politics or history or whatever, and you're fine. Whereas the rest of the world has to endure way more pressure in order to know how to assimilate in the event that their children or their own people get a spot here one day. I don't understand what be wrong with people, honestly. I don't understand why reading isn't so fundamental or common or embraced anymore. But I just wanted to say my 2 cents on that because I really do get tired of hearing the ignorance being spewed, especially when it comes to us Caribbean people. And I get it from both sides. I hear it from both sides, both from white Americans who are confused and black Americans who are confused, and Americans in general who are desperate to see everything through the lens of race. Like, no, please back up, sir. Please stay away with all that. It's really toxic. But on that note, I would say, Tata mi amores, thank you for listening and take care.